Welcome to the Global Peace Film Festival Lives Online Conversation 2022 Festival Edition. Please join me, Kelly Devine, the Artistic Director, and Nina Strike, the Executive Director, in conversation with João Rochado, the director and producer behind the film Family Heirloom, which is playing as a part of our Free for All Shorts program, which is a part of our upcoming 20th anniversary festival. Our in-person screenings begin September 19th and end September 25th. Our virtual programming, of which the Free for All Shorts program and Family Heirloom is a part, begin immediately following our in-person programming September 26th, ending October the 2nd. All the information about our events, our art exhibits, and scheduling can be found at peacefilmfest.org. And now, please join me in welcoming João to talk about a touching and tender story about inheritance, Family Heirloom.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi,
João.
everyone.
It's great to have you with us. And so let's start out. Tell us about Family Heirloom.
Oh, thank you for inviting me and for accepting my film for this festival. It's a big pleasure to be part of this. So this film tells a story about an old man, a Chinese old man, that has this treasure. For him, is a treasure. It is all he has left. It's his most valuable thing in life, and unfortunately, he has no one to leave it because his wife passed away, and his son is working far from him, and he has no one else. So he's looking for someone to keep this treasure, but he has to be the right person. So this is the story of this old man trying to find the right person to keep his treasure. And he will find it in what wouldn't be like an expected person, I would say like that. So it's kind of surprising even for him, who become like the person that is going to keep his treasure, which I don't want to say what it is because I think it's part of the story to find it. Yeah, so this is the story. It's a very simple story, I think. It's a story that develops by revealing small parts throughout the film, but always keeping some mystery until the end. So I like this idea of not telling only everything in the end. So start to unsolve the mystery piece by piece until the end.
Agreed. I think people will be very satisfied with, if they watch the film to the end. But it is a beautiful film from start to finish. And can you tell us a little bit about, many of our films are documentaries, but this is a narrative, and you're tackling, a big issue of how people relate to one another in a world that changes over a person's lifetime. And so can you tell us a little bit about, where the story is set? Is that important? And what your approach was? What attracted you to this idea?
Yes. So I think a little bit of background. So the story is set in Macau. Macau is a territory of China, just like Hong Kong. Until 1999, it was governed by the Portuguese, just like the Hong Kong was governed by the British. And so the last 20 years, this territory is back to the mainland, to China, but still is a place where a lot of Portuguese live still. And a lot of Portuguese culture is still in here, is part of this city. But the Portuguese have been here for 500 years. So it's impossible to lose this even in 20 years. It's part of the city. So for me, as a Portuguese living in Macau, which is now China, I always find this very interesting how for 500 years, two completely different people met here and how come they can communicate without speaking the same language? Because this is my case. I don't speak a word of Chinese, and a lot of Chinese here don't speak Portuguese, although I have to say that some they did learn and they know. But there is always a way for people to communicate. And so this was one of the ideas I wanted in the story. I want to be like this match of a Chinese and the Portuguese nowadays, like because it still continues to happen that new families come to Macau from a lot of different parts of the world. Actually, is a territory where different cultures mix and coexist in perfect harmony. I would say there's no conflicts. There's actually a great admiration, I would say, for each other and cooperation. So I think is a beautiful example of how different people and different cultures can exist in a small city and in harmony. So this was one of the issues. The other thing that attracted me to this story was because I found that in Macau, old people have a very good life. The city, and because of the Chinese culture, they put a lot of importance in old people, in the elderly, and the kids are responsible always for the older people, and the city, the government of the city puts a big effort into making sure that these people are healthy, that they have the last years of their life in with a lot of happiness. So it's very interesting, for example, as a contrast to Portugal, as most old people spend their days at home in the sofa watching TV. In Macau, I found that these old people, they are outside the whole day, like talking with friends in parks, going for walks, doing Tai Chi. They go and walk their pets, even if the pet is something like a bird, they bring the bird outside to the gardens, which I think is beautiful. And they have this kind of playgrounds, I would say, for old people, so they can exercise and become more healthy. So I found this, well, especially because it was a big contrast from Portugal. I found this very beautiful. And I thought this idea of an old man that is still active, but is lonely. So it's just happened to not have anyone with him besides some friends, of course, but I found it was very interesting, this idea of show this part of the city, of the parks and all this life, but at the same time, not everything is perfect and people still have problems. And in this case, it's a very simple problem. Who is going to keep this? And I think this was well, and then there's a lot of things that I observed in the city that are in the film. Maybe for foreigner people, they don't see these things because they are kind of like a private, not private, local, how do I say, some bits of things that are very for the local people. But local people will understand, and I wanted to show here and there. So I think is a film that is in some ways also pays kind of a homage to this part of the city of Macau. The mix of cultures, but also the good life that elderly people look for. So this was what I was interested in showing with this film.
And in the course of making the film, were there any things that really surprised you about really diving into this issue, or that you learned even more in depth? We always start with a plan as filmmakers, but then there's then circumstances will create other opportunities. And I was just curious to see if there were any of those in the course of your making this film.
Well, yes. The main issue was that we produced this during the pandemic, and here the restrictions are quite quite strict, I would say. Actually, in Macau, we were very safe for this whole time. We have very few cases of COVID, but in part was because there was all of these measures in place. So that was a bit difficult to overcome that. But then I had this idea because I wanted the film to represent this mix of cultures. I wanted the crew to also be a mix of different people. So I had Portuguese people working and I had Chinese people working together. And of course, the language is still an issue, although we mainly communicate in English, but there's it's always different when you have people speaking different languages on the set. Uh, for example, some of the actors, they didn't understand English or Portuguese, so I had to translate. I had the script in 3 languages: Portuguese, English, and Chinese, so that everyone on the crew could understand what was going on. And I had someone translating to the actors, so I could communicate with the actors. And that was a very interesting process for me, because I've never had this experience of working with people of different cultures, with which besides all of this, they also contributed a lot with this to show me how some things that, for example, were on the script on the Chinese culture was not exactly like that. And then there's some, because I wrote the script in Portuguese or in English, but then when you translate to Chinese, for example, there's no gender in the Cantonese language. So there's no he or she. So, and some other words like vocabulary is not exactly the same. The grammar is not exactly the same. So when you translate some things, they don't make sense. And suddenly the gender thing was a big issue, because I had a lot of lines that say he did this or she did that. And if you remove the gender, suddenly it's very much more difficult to understand what is going on. So that was, and also the sayings, there's some sayings that I was looking for Chinese sayings, although in English we have some, right? But I don't want to translate. I want to look for Chinese sayings that have the same idea. So this process of trying to mix the different cultures and trying to respect all the different cultures and all the different members of the crew, that was I think the most interesting part for me of making this film.
Fascinating, fascinating. So would it be fair to say that a film that at its heart is about an older man wanting to transmit something that was so meaningful to him to another generation that may or may not see the same meaning, you experienced in every aspect of making the film?
Yes, exactly. And that was one of the first ideas I had. Also, I wanted to make a movie that the whole process of making it allow these different people to mingle and different ideas to mingle. So I wanted to be to cross different cultures even in the process. And there's a lot of other things that maybe people don't understand, but since we're making this interview, I'm going to reveal some of them. For example, the location we chose, it has Portuguese buildings on the left side of the screen and Chinese buildings on the right. So all the Portuguese characters, they come from the left, and all the Chinese come from the right. And of course, I know that most people will not see this, it's just a detail, but I wanted in every single shot, we have in the image, in the background, we have Portuguese and Chinese. And the same thing with the soundtrack, the music. So when the Portuguese characters come, we have a song that is played with the Portuguese instruments. And when the Chinese characters come, it's with Chinese instruments, or at least sounded a bit more like Chinese. So there's a lot of details in the making of the film that are this combination of this mix of the different cultures. It's not just a story.
Now that makes sense for and we'll leave it for, to tantalize everyone, because they should seek out your film, definitely. And
Yes.
you've spoken about wanting to mix different cultures and show respect for different cultures, as well as showing what it takes to bring them together. That's a big part of what we do at Global Peace Film Festival. So it was definitely, I was really attracted to this film because it aligned with our mission. And part of what we hope is not only that people will be entertained, and we know they will be entertained by your film, but also that they will carry something away from having seen the film and take something back. And so I was just wondering, not every film has, an express impact campaign. But I was just curious what you kind of hope that people will take away into their own lives or into their own communities after seeing Family Heirloom.
Mhm. Yeah, so and it's funny because when I heard about this festival, I thought, oh, this is exactly the kind of festival when I want my film to be, because there is a message here. There is it's kind of like I want to make the film to make people aware of some of these issues that I talk. And the main one is because when people think of China, actually when people think of different cultures and extremes, people always assume like there's differences and people live in conflict, and there's always, I don't know, people will always give emphasis to the bad things. But what I find in Macau is actually the opposite. We have a lot of different cultures living here, people from different countries, including Americans actually, because we have a lot of casinos here, and some of the casinos are the same companies from Las Vegas. So, and everyone lives, in peace and harmony, and people cooperate, which I think is something beautiful. And if it happens in here, it can happen in other places. So I think this Macau can be an example of a place where different people can live together without conflicts. And this is kind of what I'm showing here. And that's why there's the Portuguese family that they don't speak a word of Chinese, and the old man doesn't speak a word of Portuguese, but somehow there's some bigger language that makes them be able to communicate with each other and be able to accept each other without the words. And I think, I don't want to be cheesy, but I think this is love, it's the language of love in a way. Because it's for me, it's what is happening here is people just see each other as other people, different people, but that it's beautiful to live together and learn with each other. And this was my message with the film. I want to show that even someone from a different culture that comes into another one, like a country, they can live happily. They can be accepted, I think, because I don't know, maybe the fights are more political and not so much in the society or in the communities. I don't know exactly why these things happen, but the feeling I have here is that between people, everything is okay. we all hang with each other and it's perfectly fine.
Well, that's just a beautiful message, and that so aligns with what we do here at the Global Peace Film Festival. So thank you so much for that. In wrapping up, can you tell us how people can find the film after the Global Peace Film Festival, and how people can support it and your work, and also what you have coming up next for yourself?
Mm-hmm. So I'm participating in a very small selection of festivals because I want to look for festivals that are meaningful, that are looking for films like mine. It's a very the rhythm is very slow. So some festivals, they look for films that will attract audiences more easily. I know that my film, you need a bit of patience, especially in the beginning when you don't understand exactly what is happening. But I'm looking for festivals that have this positive message, or that will attract audiences that are looking for something positive. I've been trying to do meaningful films for all my life. I had my graduation film was back in 2006, and it was exactly kind of the same thing. We participated in a few festivals, but then I saw the community talking about the film because of the message, not so much because of the film work, but because and I heard back then that they actually were showing in some schools the film as a way to show the kids the message of that film that was different from this one. So if people like my film and they want to support, what I would just say is just share with someone that would enjoy, you think would enjoy the film and would enjoy to see the reality of Macau in this case, because I think is a beautiful experience for people, and not a lot of people know about Macau and about these Chinese places that are full of people from other countries and from other cultures. So yes, and regarding my future, right now I'm teaching cinema in a university here in Macau, and I'm planning to continue to do some films like this one, also some documentaries. I also do some documentaries sometimes. So who knows what the future will bring.
Well, fantastic, Joao. Well, now that we have your Instagram, which is JN Brochado, we will definitely be following you so that we can share updates about your future work with our Global Peace Film Festival audiences. So thank you again for sharing your beautiful film with our audiences and for taking the time today to speak with us. This interview has been really enjoyable and enlightening. So thank you. And thank you for watching today's Glow. We have been speaking with Joao Brochado, the director and producer of the film Family Heirloom, which you can see as part of the 20th anniversary Global Peace Film Festival Free for All Shorts program, which is part of our virtual week beginning September 26th and ending October the 2nd. Our in-person programming begins the week prior, September 19th through the 25th. Information about all of our programming can be found at the Global Peace Film Festival website, peacefilmfest.org. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the festival.